What about coming at hunger from the angle of getting rid of carbs or bringing them way down?
Yeah, so
Getting into ketosis, talk about it from that aspect.
there's two important things. So when we're talking about hunger, and I think we'll talk about this more in our other episode, there's actually several different ways, several different types of hunger. So far we've been covering sort of the physical hunger, which is this hormonal side of hunger, right? And that has all to do with insulin and cortisol and GLP-1s and GIP and sympathetic tone and all this sort of stuff, right? Sympathetic nervous system, the baroreceptor, so all of these systems. But that's the physical hunger. There's also a whole emotional side of the hunger, which is called hedonic hunger, where you're eating because of the pleasure of it, right? So if you were to say, why why are you eating? It could be because you're hungry, you're physically hungry, but it could be that you simply want to eat because it looks good or it tastes good or it makes you feel better. And this is the classic, you both broke up with your girlfriend or boyfriend, eat a whole tub of ice cream. You're not eating it because you're hungry. You're eating it to make you feel better. And that's the whole idea, is that food can make you feel better. And therefore, it's important to understand this hedonic hunger because it can lead you to overeat, right? And that's where refined carbohydrates and ultra processed foods are very, very dangerous, because what they do is not only create this massive glucose spike, but they actually create these sort of massive dopamine spikes as well, especially with sugar. So we all know that if you eat very sweet foods, you get this massive rush, but you actually feel like it feels good. That's why people eat dessert, right? It's not because you're physically hungry. You've already eaten your steak or whatever, right? You're eating it because it looks good. And so the idea is that if you have not just sweet foods but ultra processed sweet foods, not only are you increasing the insulin, which increases, and you're increasing the dopamine spikes, which is your reward system in the brain, but you're also creating very minimal satiety, right? Because satiety is the problem. If you are full, then and you eat something that is still filling, even if it's sweet, it's hard to do because you can't eat, right? You're too full. That's why ultra processed foods, because they have very little satiety, can sneak in there still. Like, for example, if you eat a all you can eat buffet, you go and you eat a lot of whatever you eat, right? And somebody says, "Here, eat these two pork chops because we're going to get charged for them." You're like, "Blah, I'm going to throw up," right? Because it's all proteins and fats, right? It's going to activate GLP-1, GIP, it's going to activate baroreceptors, it's going to activate all these satiety hormones. And your satiety hormones are already screaming at you to not eat anymore, right? So you can't eat those pork chops. But if somebody says, "Here, drink this, you know, soda," you'd be like, "Sure." Right? It could still be 500 calories. Or, "Here, have this ice cream, have this apple pie." You can still eat it. Why? Because there's no satiety effect, right? So this is the whole issue with ultra processed foods, is that you can keep pounding them down. So if you're eating it for an emotional reason, you can keep pounding down these ultra processed foods, right? So that's dangerous. It can wind up leading to sort of food addictions and so on. So that's where the ultra processed carbohydrates can be sort of very dangerous in those sort of circumstances.
Let's make sure we get into ketosis though and talk about from that aspect. I
Right.
don't know the exact mechanism, but I feel like it's independent of what we've been talking about. When somebody is in ketosis, hunger diminishes greatly. Can you talk to what that mechanism is and how you feel about that?
Yeah, there's not a lot of data that I've seen in terms of ketosis. I mean, ketosis is, when you're eating very, very low carbohydrates, you're not only going to reduce, you're going to reduce a lot of hormones, right? So you're going to reduce a lot of these things. You're going to have a lot of satiety because the ultra processed carbs have the low satiety. So eating a lot of proteins and so on are going to create a lot of satiety. But the ketosis may have a bigger role on insulin, which is what we talked about a lot in the obesity code, because the insulin is probably reduces hunger through sort of a sort of slightly different mechanism. When your insulin levels are very high, it basically tells your body to store more energy, right? So that's its job, right? So don't forget that this is not an evil hormone. It's a normal hormone. It's just that if you have insulin, it's gonna tell your body to store calories, right? So normally when you eat, your insulin goes up and you're gonna store your calories. When insulin goes down, like when you fast, then you're going to release those calories, right? So in ketosis, your insulin levels tend to be very low because you're not eating a lot of carbohydrates. But because the effect of insulin is to increase or decrease your levels of body fat, right? Because that's its job. If you lower insulin levels, then your body simply doesn't want to store any more calories, and therefore you're going to impact the hunger, and your hunger is going to go down. So it probably works its way through insulin, the ketosis. I'm not sure if ketones themselves have an independent effect, but anytime you lower the insulin levels, you're going to tell your body to store fewer calories, which is going to, if your body is overweight, then it's going to notice that, hey, I already have a lot of stored calories, I don't need any more, and then decrease hunger. And this is the same way fasting can be very effective for reducing hunger. So it also induces ketosis. Same thing, right? Very low carbohydrates, nutrient insulin is a nutrient sensor. So fasting is going to reduce your insulin levels. And again, when you start getting people into these 4 or 5 day fasts, like, we do at the fasting method, we have these 5 day reset fasts. What people start to notice is that their hunger levels really start to go down. So it's possible that it's the ketones themselves that are causing this. I think it's all part of the same survival mechanism, truthfully. That when your body goes into ketosis or when it's fasting, which is very similar states, your body turns down the hunger because you don't actually, you don't want to be distracted by it all the time. You want to have energy to go out and hunt and gather and all this sort of stuff, right? So I think it's actually part of the same natural sort of evolutionary process that we've gone through. But fasting, you see exactly the same thing. When people are fasting at day 3, day 4, their hunger, their physical hunger, starts to really, really diminish. Like, people are just like, well, I'm not hungry at all. The hedonic hunger takes a little longer to affect because people are still looking at the food and thinking, oh, I would like to eat that. But the physical hunger really goes down. So I think it's the same effect. And I think it's primarily a sort of insulin effect. So, we talk about a bit in the hunger code, this sort of body fat thermostat, which is that your body regulates body fat sort of like a thermostat. Like, if you think about your room thermostat, you set it at a temperature and then it activates your heat or your air conditioning to maintain that temperature. And your body does the same sort of thing in terms of body fat percentage. So your body wants to be at a certain body fat percentage. If you get too fat, you're actually going to turn down your hunger, so you don't want to eat anymore until you lose that weight. If you lose weight, then your body activates hunger and tries to push it back up. So the key when you're trying to adjust the room temperature is to adjust the thermostat. You don't just say room temperature equals heat in minus heat out. So if I want to heat up my room, I put in a little space heater, right, and turn it on. Because again, the thermostat's going to detect that raised temperature, turn on the air conditioning, bring it down, right? So the key is to adjust this thermostat. Same thing in the body fat. The body fat percentage is set at a certain level. If you take a normal person and force feed them to make them gain weight, and they've done these experiments, you take somebody who's, say, 150, 160 pounds, you put them in an experiment where you force feed them, make them gain 20 pounds. They will. Once you stop the experiment, so their weight's gone up, but their body fat thermostat's down here still, then they will actually eat very, very little for like weeks until their body comes back to normal. But it's effortless, right? Because it's the hunger that's the problem, and because their body fat thermostat, which is controlled by all these hormones, right? Insulin, GLP-1, GIP, sympathetic tone, cortisol, all of these things together, right? Certain things push it up and certain things push it down. So you want to control those hormones. And that's the same idea with the insulin, is that it's really affecting that body fat thermostat. And that's where I think ketosis works, is through that insulin effect.
If you enjoyed that clip, you're going to want to head over here and catch the full episode. I'll see you over there.
So we think that weight gain, weight loss is all about the individual, about willpower, and about calories. That's almost all wrong. Your body regulates body fat sort of like a thermostat. So